Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. Today is going to be too sweet because we're talking NWO. We're talking peak NWO. We're talking the greatest iteration of the NWO, the 2002 WWE version. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Hey, they tried. There is so much for us to talk about leading into this match. After this match, we're going to be bouncing all over the place. And it's funny because I didn't know we were covering this match, but I just watched on WWE Vault the story of the NWO returning in 2002. And for those that haven't accessed the WWE Vault on YouTube, it's pretty awesome. And they do these things story of, and it's probably like an hour and a half or 2 hours. There's no narration. There's no interviews. It's just what happened leading up to a match or a moment. So the Hogan Savage one, for instance, it was just all the storylines. And it's cool because, yeah, we know that on Saturday night's main event, there was the big falling out, and we've seen that clip a million times. But there's also like 15 other things that happened prior. So mega powers being formed, the hints of the issues happening. So this was the same one where we were leading up to Hogan Rock at WrestleMania, but at No Way Out, the NWO comes back. They have all these things on Raw. And I will tell you, the vast majority of it was absolutely awful. I love all of the guys that were involved with this, all 5 of them. The storylines were not good. It was obvious this was thrown together at the last minute. It did not work. But the point is, the story of on WWE Vault does a really good job of summarizing this. So I probably don't even need to ask you this, but what led you to pick this? Is it just the sheer star power and all of the drama surrounding it? Because I doubt that this was a 5-star match.
It was not. And so, but this was one that absolutely, like you said, you can't not look at the star power and just be like, oh my gosh, like what's going on here? And so part of it too is I thought this was a good opportunity, and we'll get into it during the match and before and all that good stuff. Like, I said it a little bit last week, like we're talking about heels, talking about faces, like we're seeing that language, and WWE put a list out, and so I know I said, "Hey, let's talk about that on Friday," or when we're recording this one. And so, yeah, let's. So we will get into that a little bit because there's, their rating, of course, and it's always up for discussion. Is where they themselves rated some heel turns, and there's some that we're not too sure about. So we'll just get into that as we're going through this.
Great. I have a lot to talk about. I'm really excited to cover this one. This is pretty wild. So let's get right into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
So we're on Raw, and we're on the road to WrestleMania. You're going to cover all this, but there's just so many moving pieces to what they were trying to do. And none of it made any real sense. And it's funny too, because in hindsight, Hogan Rock was legendary, right? But okay, why Hogan Rock? Shouldn't it have been Hogan Austin? Oh, but they really didn't want to work together, or neither of them wanted to take the pin, or Austin turned down the match, or whatever. And then we have this Scott Hall, Steve Austin thing. Why? And then why is Kevin Nash not wrestling? And why is it 3-on-2? And, I also wonder what would have happened if the NWO didn't come back. Like, how else would we have done this WrestleMania? Because Steve Austin and The Rock, they're two of our, 4 or 5 biggest stars of all time. They're on our Mount Rushmore, and we really don't have any plans for them a month or 6 weeks prior to WrestleMania. And this was the era. I talked about it last week, Jeff. It was just a different era then. Everything was fly by the seat of your pants. And sometimes it led to some great moments. And many other times it led to just some kind of garbage thrown together television. So, and I think that's the category some of this falls into. But we're on Raw. It's March 11th, 2002. We're at your old stomping grounds of the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan. On this show, our match we're going to cover is the main event. Leading up to this main event, we have RVD and the Hardy Boys defeating the Dudley Boys and William Regal. We have Test defeating Rikishi. We have Al Snow defeating Goldust to win the Hardcore Championship. So far, our matches were 4 minutes, 2 minutes, and 1 minute. We then get a 4-minute match between Booker T and Kurt Angle defeating Edge and Big Show in 4 minutes. We then have Christian defeating Billy in 2 minutes. Christian and DDP were paired up at this point. Jazz and Stacy Keibler are going to defeat Lita and Trish Stratus in 2 minutes. So 2, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. Different era, huh? And then in our main event, Hogan, Nash, Hall against Austin and The Rock. I mean, you'll get into this with the build. How are all these guys wrestling on free TV? How do we do this? I mean, it has to be as simple as Vince McMahon just throwing stuff against the wall, us going week to week, ripping up scripts. It makes no damn sense. But what's your take on this? Is there anything more to it, or is it that simple?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And so but part of this was, so we got to remember the dissolution of WCW at this point, and so they bought. The WWF at the time bought the WCW video library and trademarks, all that in 2001. When the company ending, the invasion angle, we all know that in the story there. But under the storyline purposes here, Vince brought in Hogan, Hall, and Nash, who, as we know, were the original NWO, at No Way Out, which was February, so the month prior to this, and he hired them as really the kind of counter to WWE, or brought them in so that they could counter WWE, because at the time, Ric Flair in the television stories was also the co-owner of WWE, and so he did not want to share power, and so he wanted his now enforcers, thugs, whatever you want to call it, the NWO, to take out the WWE's stars. Those stars, as you said, were The Rock and Stone Cold. And so that was really, like you said, I just feel like that's just a missed chance there. Like, I get Shane had it, and you got co-owners and all this other stuff, but also, like, that's the best you could come up with at that point. Like you said, we know that there's some stuff that happens at WrestleMania as well too, with these guys and them having matches. But it just kind of how it played out though at this point, like it was almost too fresh. It was almost like you said, like they had to do something with these people. What do you do? And do you put him at the top of the card? Yeah, apparently. And so it's almost like there's so much going on behind the scenes. There's so much that like just like we hear WrestleMania, who gets TV time, like who gets on the pay-per-views, like you're not going to not put these guys on the show just because of who they are. Like that's the reality of it.
Yeah, but it just wasn't good. I mean, they had this thing where, Hogan gets in a semi and runs over Rock in an ambulance. It wasn't good television. Go watch anything leading up to this match and leading up to WrestleMania 18 with all of these people. I mean, there were bits of it that were kind of fun to watch because you love these guys. Like, there were a couple one-liners from The Rock or a couple things Austin said. But even then, I'm watching some of this. I'm like, this is some of the worst stuff that Steve Austin's ever done. It just didn't work. And I mean, this era was just brutal. So we're going to talk. We got a lot to talk about during the match. We have the full match. This is posted by WWE on their YouTube channel. It says full match, The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin versus the NWO. It's hard finding some of this Raw stuff right now because we have parts of it on Netflix, parts of it on Peacock. So, grabbing these official matches off YouTube is probably the easiest thing to do. So, Jeff, if you're ready, I say we get right into the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff. This man is
a huge ovation for the people's champion, for the man that will meet Hollywood.
Okay, so Rock coming out, obviously big ovation. Here we go. We're off and running with this match. Man, so, just continuing this conversation about this NWO invasion, if you will. I mean, it's really hard to put into words how bad it was in so many ways. So, they come back at No Way Out. Then, it's funny. I was looking at the Scott Hall and Kevin Nash portion of this, right? So we have this match. They're also a few weeks prior to this, Scott Hall wrestled against Spike Dudley and obviously squashes him.
Introducing his tag team partner from Victoria, Texas, weighing in at 252 pounds.
Okay, so Stone Cold coming out. Massive ovation. So Scott Hall's going to squash Spike Dudley. And then WrestleMania, which is just a few days. It's 6 days after this. He goes against Steve Austin. Then, here we go. Just so it's odd seeing them on WWE. It's odd seeing this match on free TV. So Scott Hall would actually defeat Bradshaw at Backlash the following month. And then in May, Scott Hall in his final WWF appearance would team with the Big Show and X-Pac, who, by the way, are now in the NWO at this point in May. And they're going to have a no contest with Steve Austin, Bradshaw, and Ric Flair. And then his alcohol issues led to him getting released. So also in the build for this match, for this, at this point in March, they're making a ton of light over Scott Hall's alcohol issues with the belief that he didn't have issues, but he did have issues. It just, wild, man. And then, Nash doesn't wrestle until a 6-man match in April. And then he returned from a bicep injury and tore his quad in that July 8th match. So because of that, he's out of there. And then, of course, what I forgot was this all plays into the Shawn Michaels stuff, because Shawn Michaels, quote unquote, joined the NWO on June 3rd. So he's part of this Kevin Nash, Big Show, X-Pac, and Booker T NWO. So June 3rd, Shawn Michaels comes back out of nowhere. A month later, Kevin Nash tears his quad. A week after that, Vince McMahon ends the NWO. So then what happens to Shawn Michaels? They run that whole Triple H thing, and he wrestles Triple H at SummerSlam. So what I didn't realize, Jeff, and maybe you did, maybe you didn't, when Shawn Michaels came back to join the NWO, he was already thinking or ready to work another match. My guess is, had Kevin Nash not tore his quad, the word on the street is Triple H was going to join the NWO, be the leader of the NWO. Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash, et cetera, would also be in the NWO. X-Pac's involved. You kind of have a new clique, if you will. And then who knows how Shawn Michaels would have wrestled. But instead, because of Kevin Nash tearing his quad, we get the Shawn Michaels Triple H Classic, and then Shawn's your champion in November. So pretty wild. And again, I know it's pro wrestling, things change, fans, dictate certain things, but you got a torn quad, you got an alcohol problem, you got a Hulk Hogan babyface turn. Who the hell knows what else is going on behind the scenes? Triple H is getting some booking power. It's wild, man.
Everybody going nuts for Hogan getting in the ring here. So
7, 8 years. You don't know that.
So Hogan back in the WWF.
And Hogan now with the knockdown in the right hands on the people's champion.
And again, it doesn't it. I mean, tell me if I'm crazy here, but doesn't it make? I mean, never in this current era would the 8-year return of Hulk Hogan being in the ring take place in a 5-man handicap match on Raw.
Yeah. It's just wild to think that, he's not getting booed too, predates that. So I did want to talk, I sent you the link the other day and I was kind of holding off on it here. So like I said, WWE ranked, they themselves ranked the, with the top heel turns in history. Yes. I'll start at, number 10. I'll just work back through real quick. Triple H attacking Daniel Bryan, leading to Randy Orton cashing in. Number 9, Nikki Bella turning on Brie. Number 8, Jimmy turning on Jay. 7, Becky Lynch turning on Charlotte. 6, Xavier and Kofi turning on Big E. So, okay, fine, whatever. Just some turns, tag teams, stuff like that. 5 down, though, here. Number 5, Dominic turning on his father, Rey Mysterio. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Number 4, Shawn turning on Marty Jannetty.
Yep.
Number 3 was Seth turning on the Shield.
Okay.
And then the point of debate here, they had number 2 was Hogan joining the NWO, putting John Cena turning on Cody Rhodes as number 1. 1 and 2 flipped. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. Hogan.
It has to. Yeah.
Okay. Hogan heel turn is by a mile bigger than the Cena one. And it's not even up for debate. Now, if you're younger and don't remember the Hogan one, and, I can understand for you why the Cena one would be bigger. But Hulk Hogan, it's not even close. The shock of it, the secrecy of it, you didn't see it coming. I mean, there's so many reasons why the Hogan one was bigger, but I would say the biggest thing is the shock value of it was way bigger. I mean, it wasn't hard to believe. I mean, when that whole angle started a few weeks ago, I knew what was coming. I mean, it wasn't shocking. And then Cena lingering in the ring, it was like, oh, he's going to attack Cody. And obviously I didn't know how they were going to do it, but it was predictable. The Hogan thing, you just never saw it coming. And it was just a good versus bad era. So, there was no Hogan rules or, let's go Hogan sucks. I mean, there was nothing like that. It was just a white meat baby face that just went to the dark side. So the contrast was greater. The shock was greater. That's my opinion on it. What about you?
Yeah, I think Travis Scott and The Rock being in the ring kind of made it, they took away from it, especially Travis Scott. A lot of online warriors were not happy with him, the black eye, all that other stuff. But he did seem a little out of place with this, I feel like. So that kind of, if I had to score those two events, like the Hogan turn is a 10, the Cena turn is probably like an 8.5, 9.
Perfect way of putting it.
9.25. Yeah, like it just, you have to look at the history of, and I get it. They've ranked it that way because it had just happened. So maybe they were taking that approach. I don't know. We'll never know. But I feel like you can't, like the Hogan turn changed everything. It moved the needle from one position to the absolute opposite end of where it was. The Cena stuff, like, you know, okay, maybe it would have hit a little different if he had been a little more full time. I get this is the retirement tour, but he was getting dinged a little bit before it for like, hey, he hasn't been on TV in a month. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I get, it's just weird. And so again, like great, like they got the reaction they wanted. You probably should have done it sooner. Now looking back in retrospect, of like, hey, 2020 hindsight, like obviously he's way more popular now. And so I did appreciate the memes online. That's
a great way of putting it. I mean, that's the reality is this won't really move business much just because business is so hot and it's obviously only going to last for a portion of this year. I mean, he'll assumingly turn babyface before the end of the year, and hell, it may happen in a few months. Okay, so it's not going to have the impact that Hogan had. Now, if you wanted it to be as big as Hogan, you just would have done it. And I don't know. It might be 15 years ago now, right? Like, I don't know what the year was, but 2010, 2012, there was a ton of money and ton of opportunity in that. And it's so funny, too, because, I guess conventional wisdom was, oh, he sells so much merch. How could he, have a greater effect on business? And the reality is Roman Reigns was a heel for how many years? And how good was it for business? So I don't think Vince saw money in heels. He saw money in Hulk Hogan, John Cena baby faces. But the reality is that you can make a ton of money off heels. And maybe it's because it's a different era, but maybe it's because Vince just had a blinder to heels drawing money. I mean, if he would have saw heels drawing money, WrestleMania 6, Hogan turns heel on Warrior leading into that match after that match at some point. So
Hogan's face, you gotta believe. Well, this is a handicap match there.
We're coming down to the stretch run of this match. 3-on-2. Part of what I think makes this match weird is they're basically playing it straight, right? So like they're having a 12-minute match. Not a, quick little, DQ. Oh my goodness, it's all chaos. They're actually having a match. The idea of Hogan and Rock fighting, Austin and Hall fighting before their matches, to me makes no sense. Okay, so we're down to Hogan and Rock in the ring here.
Watch yourself. Hogan sent a Rock for the Rock and a foot to the face. Hogan caught the foot to the face. The leg drop from the 300-pounder. Hogan's got the leg hook. Hogan's got the cover. And Hogan's got the win. You saw it. Do you believe it, Sam? My God, I can't believe it. Hogan just beat the Rock with the big foot and the leg drop. And now Austin trying to get some of Hogan. Got an elbow right in the kidneys.
Okay, so Hogan gets the pin on the Rock, which in this era meant Rock was going to win on Sunday.
Yeah.
Scott Hall hits Austin with a stunner. NWO standing tall. Gosh, what do you think's going to happen at WrestleMania? Do you think The Rock and Steve Austin are both going to win? Who would have thought?
Yeah.
So you got NWO standing tall at this point and kind of playing to the crowd. I don't know. That's the way we're going to go off the air. That's the final Raw leading into WrestleMania. It just doesn't really, for me at least, hit. But let's get into the aftermath.
Oh, it's time for the aftermath.
All right, so you know how I felt. What do you think?
Yeah, especially the ending. It just felt flat. Like it didn't hit like it should. It wasn't, it is weird. Like it's the best way to describe it. Like you said,
and you have
it's one of
four, you have three of the what, 5 or 6 biggest stars in the history of the business in the ring, and the word you're using is flat.
Yeah. Like it just, it was a little sloppy in the end too. Like it didn't come together like it should. Yeah, it's just one of those where like you would have expected more. This really shouldn't have taken place, just because of like when it was. Like we're a week away from Mania at this point, and so it really doesn't belong. It doesn't belong. Like that's the best way to look at it. And so I think from taking that approach, it's just one of those where it's like, okay, it happened, but it didn't really add, like you said, to what we were about to get at WrestleMania. Like, okay, they hate each other. We know that, and we know what they're trying to do, but it just feels like, hey, like they were kind of cornered into how they needed to book it, and it just didn't come together like it should have. Now the Mania matches were fine, but again, like you said, we know like the heels went over, so the faces are going to get the win. Like it's just weird.
I just thought the mystique of everything.
Yeah.
That's all I got, man.
Absolutely.
What any write-ups, or I mean, what we kind of know what happened after this.
Yeah, we know what happened. Like you said, the Mania stuff, we've already kind of talked about it a little bit, like backstage nonsense as well, too. Like, Austin refusing to lose to Hogan in the match. And so that's why, got what we got. It was just all kinds of messy at that point. And so no write-ups on this one, which that kind of is telling too. But the ratings on this one for PWI, Hogan was 19, Nash wasn't rated, Hall was 59, Austin was 13, Rock was 9. And so these, like, even like they weren't over with the fans on this one. Like it just, it just kind of went weird. So I'll let you go first on your score as I do. So what are you thinking?
Now I'm factoring in that match, the story before, the everything after. Yeah. I have this at a 2, just because of what a offensive waste of these talents in this match, in this story. And even if you said, Tom, we need to sit down today and book out the NWO return. Now, I know it's tough with the personalities involved, but it just didn't hit. And again, there were good moments over this run, but this, like, I don't know, man, 2002 to hell, 2020. I mean, there's like this 15-year run where, and I obviously have a lot of respect for what he did for the business, but this was just this era where Vince was not building a structure around him and allowing other people to do what they could do. It was just so fly by the seat of your pants, and there is no long-term plan. And let's just get through this Raw. Let's just get through this pay-per-view. And they did that for over a decade. And it led to some really bad stuff. Now, inside of there's so much content that, there's some classic matches, classic storylines. And how good was Punk Cena? How good was Shawn Taker? Like, there's great stuff that occurred, but there's a fraction of great stuff that occurred compared to what could have been if you apply this current way of doing things. I mean, we're getting stuff every damn month. I mean, KO Sammy is a mid-card feud, mid-card match on a B pay-per-view that's as good as anything that occurred over a 15-year period prior to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's hard. I'm with you. Like especially because we had, our episode last week with our RVD Mr. Perfect, and we gave that a 5 because it was perfectly fine. And this one, like you said, it did. Like, it fell flat. And so I'm with you. I gave it a 3 because it's just kind of like, and there's nothing wrong with your score either. It probably could have gone lower, but it just, I think it was just a lack of, they didn't know what to do with who they had. And then I think if there was some backstage kind of politicking going on too, and some nonsense there, like that could have just hurt it as well. So I don't know. It's just hard, but hey, that's what we covered the good with the bad here. I did not expect it to be as bad as it was, but it was. And so, but we'll see what happens.
Cool.
Well,
we're shifting gears next week.
Yeah, we're getting close here. I figured I'd dump in a quick TNA match here before we're on the road and covering WrestleMania for a little bit. But 2 big names, of course, from Lockdown 2008, Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe. And so we'll get into that next week though.
I'm pumped to cover it, man. So we'll dig into that one. We got a lot to talk about. It's a match I've never seen, so I have a soft spot for these TNA matches because they're absolutely awesome. They involve Hall of Famers. I've never seen them before, so it's fun to explore them. So good episode, a lot of fun stuff we talked about, and look forward to an all new episode next week of The Payoff.